Good evening, Africa. Good evening to every soul, every family, every farmer, every worker, and every leader listening from the bustling cities to the quiet villages. Tonight, what I bring to you is not merely news, it is a moment in history. A moment so laden with irony, so rich with the weight of centuries, that even the most seasoned political analysts are struggling to believe it. The words I am about to utter would have been unthinkable a decade ago, and yet here we are. France, yes. The same France that once dictated our trade, our currencies, our policies, and even our dreams has come to Burkina Faso not with orders but with pleas. They are begging Captain Ibrahim to partner in an avocado export deal worth 100 million US dollars. Pause and let that sink in. France, the former colonial power whose influence once loomed like a shadow over our lands, now finds itself knocking on Ouagadougou's door, asking for a seat at the table of prosperity that we, the people of Burkina Faso, have built with our own hands. This is not just about fruit, this is about power. It is about history reversing its course. It is about the hunter finding himself before the mercy of the hunted, the master at the gates of the former servant, seeking access, seeking favor, seeking survival. The symbolism of this moment cannot be overstated. For decades, Burkina Faso's farmers were told their soil could not compete with the plantations of Latin America. They were told that tropical fruits like avocados would always be the domain of others, that Africa's role was to supply the raw materials for industry, not the produce. For fine dining in Paris, they were told, by policy and by manipulation, to focus on what the West wanted, not what Africa needed. And yet here we stand today with France, offering $100 million to access the very fruit that they once dismissed as inconsequential. This is not a mere trade deal. This is a political earthquake. The ground beneath the old colonial order is trembling, and the aftershocks are being felt in every European capital. The image of French officials landing in Ouagadougou, smiling nervously, shaking hands with the man they once tried to undermine, is not just a diplomatic scene, it is a reversal of centuries of imbalance. The world is watching, and they understand. This is bigger than avocados. This is the story of Africa reclaiming its seat at the table of global commerce. You see, this moment did not appear from thin air. It is the result of years of intentional work, of policies that put farmers first, of leadership that refused to bow to the West's manipulative playbook. Captain Ibrahim, since taking the helm, has been clear. Burkina Faso will not trade away its dignity for aid packages or hollow promises. Instead, he focused on building capacity, modern irrigation systems, local seed banks, farmer cooperatives, and agro-processing plants. He turned what was once a struggling agricultural sector into a powerhouse, capable of supplying Africa and beyond. And it worked. Our avocados are now celebrated for their quality, their taste, their resilience. They grow in harmony with our land, tended by hands that understand every leaf, every blossom, every harvest. They are the fruit of knowledge passed down through generations, combined with the best modern techniques, and they have caught the attention of the world. But why, you might ask, is France so desperate now? The answer lies in their own crisis. Climate change has disrupted supply chains in Latin America, where France traditionally sourced much of its avocado supply. Rising tensions with certain South American exporters have made deals more expensive and less reliable. At the same time, French consumers addicted to their avocado toast and guacamole have driven demand to record highs. The French culinary industry, from Michelin-starred restaurants to humble, is in a quiet panic. Without a steady supply, prices will soar, shelves will empty, and the political cost will be high. So they turn to us. But here is the difference. This is not the Burkina Faso of the 1960s, nor the Burkina Faso of the 1990s. This is a nation with options, with allies, with the confidence to negotiate as an equal. France cannot come here with the old playbook of veiled threats and economic blackmail. They cannot dangle promises of development aid as though we are beggars. They must come with genuine partnership in mind, or they will leave with nothing. And make no mistake, Burkina Faso has other suitors. China, the Middle East, and several emerging markets in Asia have already expressed interest in large-scale avocado imports. Some are willing to offer more than 100 million, coupled with infrastructure projects and technology transfers. This means France is not just negotiating with us, they are competing for the attention, the trust, and the market share of a nation they once considered theirs by default. That era is over. The people feel it. In the markets of Ouagadougou, in the villages of Koudougou and Banfora, in the fertile lands of the Cascades region. The conversation is the same. Will France finally treat us with respect? Will they meet our conditions? Or will they once again try to trick us? There is excitement, yes, but there is also caution. We have learned from history. We know that smiles and handshakes can hide contracts filled with traps. This time, the people demand transparency. This time, the deal must be on our terms. And our terms are clear. The farmers must benefit directly. The processing plants must remain under ownership. The transportation and storage infrastructure must employ our people. The currency of payment must be sovereign, free from the colonial chains of the CFA franc. No loopholes, no exploitation, no surrender of our autonomy. In Paris, these terms are causing discomfort. They are not used to being told you must buy African. Negotiators. But discomfort is the price of change. And if they want our avocados, they will have to accept that the days of commanding are gone. The days of requesting have begun. Tonight, as we speak, the delegations are still in Ouagadougou. The French team is reportedly reviewing the latest draft agreement, which contains clauses they have never seen in African trade contracts before. Clauses that protect our farmers from sudden price drops. Clauses that prevent foreign companies from taking over our processing plants. Clauses that give Burkina Faso the right to prioritize African buyers over foreign ones in times of shortage. This is not just a trade agreement, it is a sovereignty agreement trapped in the language of commerce. And if France signs it, the implications will echo far beyond avocados. It will set a precedent that other African nations can follow. It will show that we do not need to accept whatever terms are given, that we can dictate terms and still have the world line up to do business with us. It will mark the beginning of a new era in which African produce is not undervalued, not exploited, but respected and paid for at its true worth. So I say to you tonight, let us not underestimate what is unfolding before us. This is not just an economic transaction, it is a lesson in power, dignity, and the turning of history's wheel. France may have come for avocados, but what they will leave with, if they leave with anything at all, is a reminder that Africa has awakened, and it will never again be lulled back to sleep.
Welcome to Talk of Africa 360, your source for insightful news, analysis, and thoughtful commentary. If you value informed perspectives and fact-based reporting, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an update. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is based on reliable public sources and credible online information. It is intended strictly for educational and analytical purposes. We do not promote or endorse political violence, hate speech, or any form of discrimination. Our goal is to inform, not to inflame. Thanks for being here. Let's stay informed together.
In the villages, elders speak of a new dawn. In the cities, youth movements organize to protect the gains of this alliance. Farmers anticipate access to modern tools and techniques, freeing them from the endless cycle of low-yield harvests. Teachers prepare to integrate new technologies into classrooms. Entrepreneurs envision startups that will operate on a continental scale. The energy is palpable, and it is contagious. Meanwhile, in Western think tanks, analysts are beginning to whisper the unthinkable, that Africa, long treated as a pawn on the chessboard of global politics, might now be moving as a queen, dictating the pace and direction of the game. They are beginning to accept, reluctantly, that sanctions may not work, that propaganda may fall flat, and that military threats may ignite more unity than fear. The realization is dawning that the era of unilateral Western dominance is not in decline, it is in free fall. And so, the question becomes, what will the West do? Will they adapt to a multipolar world where Africa is an equal player, or will they cling to the crumbling walls of their old empire? Will they choose partnership over domination, respect over exploitation? Or will they continue to dig their heels into the quicksand of history, sinking deeper with every attempt to maintain control? The answers will determine not just the future of Africa, but the future of the entire world. For now, the streets of Ouagadougou are quiet under the night sky, but the quiet is not of fear. It is the calm before a storm of progress. Cargo ships loaded with the machinery of change are on the move. Agreements are being signed across African capitals. Skilled hands are preparing to shape steel, plant seeds, lay tracks, and build networks. And somewhere in a modest government office, Captain Ibrahim Traoré and his team are finalizing the next phase of a plan that could redefine the destiny of a continent. To the west, this alliance between Burkina Faso and China may seem like a threat. To Africa, it is a promise. A promise that the future will not be dictated by those who see the continent as a mine, a market, or a military base. A promise that the decisions made in African capitals will serve African people first. A promise that the wealth beneath African soil will feed African dreams before it fills foreign vaults. This is not the destruction of order, it is the birth of justice. And as this chapter of history unfolds, one truth will remain unshakable. The power of a people united in purpose is greater than any empire built on exploitation. The West may try to rewrite the story, but the pen is now in African hands, and the ink flows with the confidence of a continent that has found its voice. And so, the stage is set. In one corner, a France that for centuries dictated terms to Africa, now standing with hat in hand, conscious of the irony, conscious of the eyes of the world upon them. In the other, a Burkina Faso whose farmers, traders, and leaders have fought their way from the margins of the global economy to a position where they can afford to say no and mean it. The meetings in Ouagadougou have continued late into the night these past few days. France's envoys, desperate not to leave empty-handed, have begun to make concessions they once considered unthinkable. They have agreed in principle to conduct the entire transaction outside of the CFA franc system. They have acknowledged that 70% of all supply chain operations must be handled by Burkinabe companies. They have even offered to fund a network of rural roads and refrigerated transport trucks, infrastructure that will remain in Burkina Faso's hands, even after the deal's completion. For Captain Traoré, however, the negotiations are not only about securing better terms. They are about sending a message to every farmer, every youth, every African watching, that it is possible to engage the world on your own terms, that the days of bending to pressure are over, that dignity is worth more than any check, no matter how many zeros it carries. This message has already begun to resonate far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. In the streets of Bamako, Conakry, Niamey, and Accra, conversations in markets and cafes turn to this deal as if it were a continental referendum on sovereignty. Farmers' unions from Senegal to Tanzania are watching closely, ready to use the Burkina Faso model as a blueprint for their own negotiations with foreign buyers. The ripple effect is undeniable. The balance of agricultural power in Africa is shifting one avocado at a time. Meanwhile, French media coverage has grown more urgent. Morning talk shows debate whether Paris should swallow its pride and accept every one of Traoré's conditions or risk losing the deal entirely. Economic analysts point out that without Burkina Faso's avocados, French retailers will be forced to pay up to 40% more from South American suppliers, costs that will inevitably be passed to French consumers. A once quiet agricultural shortage has now evolved into a political problem, one that could cost French leaders dearly if they mishandle it. In Ouagadougou, there is no sense of desperation. Instead, there is calm, calculated strategy. The government has made it clear that France is welcome to partner, but not at the expense of Burkina Faso's independence. Every clause in the contract is scrutinized. Every offer is weighed against long-term national interests. In these negotiations, speed is not the priority, security and sovereignty are. And then there is the final twist, one that few in Paris saw coming. Captain Traoré's administration has quietly opened parallel talks with a coalition of buyers from the Middle East and East Asia. These buyers, impressed by Burkina Faso's agricultural reforms, are prepared to match or even surpass France's $100 million offer. The message could not be clearer. Burkina Faso is no longer a nation with one option. It is a nation with choices, and choice is the purest form of power. The West once controlled African agriculture through monopoly, by being the only door through which goods could pass. But now, Burkina Faso is building a house with many doors, and France is just one guest among many. Whether they choose to walk through respectfully or stand outside nursing old pride is no longer Burkina Faso's problem. And so, as this chapter comes to a close, one truth remains unshakable. The days when Africa had to beg for a seat at the table are over. Burkina Faso now sits at the head of its own table, and tonight, France, the former master, is the one knocking at the door. Whether they are welcomed in or left standing outside will depend entirely on how well they learn the new rules of engagement. In the quiet fields where avocados ripen under the West African sun, farmers are no longer just cultivating fruit. They are cultivating a new era. An era in which Africa's wealth serves Africa first. An era in which no nation, no matter how powerful its past, can dictate the destiny of another. And perhaps, when the history of this moment is written, It will not be remembered as the day Burkina Faso sold avocados to France, but as the day Burkina Faso taught France the meaning of partnership.
As reactions continue to pour in from across the continent, one thing is clear. Africa is demanding respect, sovereignty, and accountability. Was this just a diplomatic misstep or a deeper sign of shifting global alliances? We'll be watching closely. If you found this story important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real, unfiltered African news. This is Talk of Africa 360, telling the stories that matter.